Welcome everybody, my name is Jeff St. Laurent and this is the Tuesday live show coming at you each and every week. And today we have an interesting topic and it's getting your finances right. Even if you haven't earned any money in your coaching business yet, and financial, or I should say fiscal fitness and responsibility is a huge thing and it's often not talked about with what we do. And that's what I wanted to address today. And so with that being said, I do record all of my live shows. I put them in my university at sellingcoaching.com. So please check those out. I help coaches transition to a full-time business by providing some great structure in terms of their marketing plan, in terms of getting clients and all of the pieces to launch your business so you are confident in knowing what you're doing on a daily, weekly basis to earn money long-term. I have a lot of great resources in my university. You can check those out if you want to start right off on the homepage. Enter your name and email address. That's going to allow you to get not only my free resource, which is an audio resource, Launching Your Coaching Business, the First 3 Vital Steps, but also it's going to put you in my email community, and that's going to allow you to get some great information on a weekly basis. Now, I'm looking for something right now because I'm going to post something for you guys. I'm running another group program, a 5-month group program, and what I'm going to do is, for those of you watching this live, I'm going to paste that into the comments. We're going to be starting that off on October 11th if you're watching that live. If you're watching the recording of this, it will also be down below in the information there. I just put it in there. You can check that out, and even if the timing's not right for you for something like that, and when you click that link and you enter your name and email, that will bring you to the information page. But that will also put you in my community where I will let you know when I'll be running another one, because I do run them throughout the year. So exciting things coming up as we are heading into the last quarter of 2021. And with that being said, let's talk about money. And the reason I like to talk about money in selling and all those, a lot of times they're not controversial topics, but a lot of people aren't comfortable talking about money. They're not comfortable talking about selling. And as an entrepreneur, it's something that I had to work hard at, and it's something that I would want you to work hard at, is just becoming comfortable with money and finances, asking for money, the selling aspect of it, obviously, that I teach as well. And so when I talk about, financial responsibility and things like that, I'm not coming to you as a financial advisor and telling you what to do with your money and investing and all that good stuff. I have my thoughts and opinions, etc. But I keep this more to just things you want to understand and consider, things that, some of the things I wish I knew earlier as well. But it's mostly as you come into a business, it's different than having a job. When you have a job, most of the time you put in a certain amount of hours. It's, what you're getting paid, when you're getting paid, with what frequency, if there's benefits involved, etc. And what we're doing, there's nothing. There's no guarantee about anything. You can show up in your office. I can come in here day in, day out, week after week, and never get paid, and so how much I'm gonna get paid this week, next week, the week after, no idea. There's some consistency we can have with our business. So the only thing that's predictable is more of what we do in terms of the activities that ideally are supposed to create the income. And so we can rely on that. But in terms of, what's happening with our finances, there's no predictability with that. Ideally, we can create a situation longer term where there is some consistency with it, etc. But in the beginning, there's none of that. Like I always tell my clients, like, I guarantee you will earn some money. You'll be earning money in your business. And I guarantee with our work together, you will earn income. In terms of how much and when and how consistent, I can't tell you that. But I know if you're going to do the work, you're going to create the income, So with that, there comes a different level of financial responsibility and planning, which I still think you should have, even if you have a job and you have some consistent paychecks, etc. But with that being said, especially with where we're coming from, you could have, and starting off here, you could have $1,000 month. Great. And then your next 5 months could be zero, and that plays out futuristically. So now let's say you're earning, you have a $2,000 or a $3,000 month. and then the next month goes to $400 or $500. So there's some ebbs and flows in the business, and that can be translated futuristically, even if you're having a five or multiple five-figure months and beyond, right? You could have a multiple five-figure month, and then you could make $7,000 the next month. That doesn't sound bad if you're starting off, right? But there's definitely some ebbs and flows. So you have to account for those things. So a couple of things that I want to get across today in terms of, thinking about our finances with our business. First, from a foundational standpoint, especially as you're launching, you've got to start to understand your financial responsibilities within your household. If you're fortunate enough to be with a significant other people, etc., that can take on some of that financial load, some of your financial responsibilities, and help you out with those for a certain amount of time or indefinitely, etc. That's always helpful, because what that does is that takes pressure off of the business to have to earn income. Now, there's always nice to have a little bit of pressure, right? Yet we all work at different levels of pressure. I found that the majority of people don't work well under financial pressure, meaning you could be stressed financially, like, oh, we have bills we need to pay, etc. But it's different when you have a financial pressure where, you have a certain, let's say you need at least $5,000 every month to meet your minimum financial requirements to pay everything you need to pay for. And in your business, isn't earning much, if anything, right? Well, that's a big load to have to carry, right? If I'm on the phone with a potential client and that I have to have that person hire me, because if they don't hire me, then I'm not going to be able to pay my, you fill in the blank, right, mortgage or whatever. That's stressful, and you also operate very differently versus, if I'm on the phone with somebody and it doesn't matter to me whether they hire me or not financially. Of course, you want them to, not only because you get paid to do what you love, but you also get to help them. But it's a different space to be in, right? You remain more objective, and you allow that person the space. That allows you the type of selling that I teach, is allows you the space to be comfortable with somebody and to create a comfortable decision to move forward, right? So different space to be in, right? So there's just understanding what your financial responsibilities are, whether you're responsible for a bunch or nothing, right? Regardless of that, you need to understand that. Obviously there's there's things you've got to do with your business to get started, right? One of which is potentially hiring someone like myself, and like it's me or somebody else. Like, at the end of the day, I've always hired people along the way, and I even work with people at this point, in my business. And with that being said, though that's an investment in your business, things like doing a website, smaller things like processing credit cards, right? There's small little things along the way. We're lucky because we have a fairly low overhead business, which is fantastic. We can do it from the comfort of our own home. If we have a home office, something like that, we can have tax deductions, etc. But with that being said, you got to be cognizant of that, and you've got to start to recognize and start to understand the business of coaching. And, well, how does my tax situation work, right? And I'm not going to get into that. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an accountant, etc. I have an accountant, and I've started to understand that over the last 20 years doing entrepreneurship, plus from personal training now into my coaching, and then into mentor coaching, etc. But I've started to understand that, and you've got to be aware of, okay, so what can I deduct, in terms of expenses, not only things that are obvious, like doing a website, hiring someone like myself, credit card fees, things like that. But what are some other things that potentially you're already paying for that you're now utilizing for business? Business miles in your car if you're to and from somewhere, business related, networking meetings, etc. Your cell phone, the phone that you're using, yes, it's a cell phone, right? But if you're using that for business, that is definitely in part or fully deductible, right? And I'm not saying, oh, talk to your accountant about that, right? There's different laws for different states, so forth and so on. But I'm just saying, be aware of that. Your internet, there's things you're already paying for. You guys are going to get a new computer, right? There's a lot of things you want to be aware of. And what I'm saying is I want you to become fiscally responsible. Understand what that is. Don't just say, oh, I don't know, or oh, it's so complicated. Well, like, that's important stuff. You need to understand that, right? And you can't just be hands off on that, right? So you need to start to understand what are those things. I'm not saying you need to become an expert. Have someone like an accountant be your expert. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I understand every year, what's coming in, what's going out, what I can deduct, etc. And I understand it enough so when I go there at the end of the year, I'm not shocked and I have money set aside or I've been paying my quarterly taxes, etc. So, and I've got some extra money set aside. So if there's something I miss that I'm unaware of, I've got things covered. The last thing in the world you want to do is get to the end of your tax year, and then especially as you start earning money, like I want to start to prepare you before you've earned any money, or as you start earning a little bit of money. But especially as you start earning more money, the last thing you want to do is be like, oh, I had my first six-figure year, and then, get your taxes done and realize you owe $30,000 that you don't have or that you spent or whatever. That can ruin you. That literally could ruin you. And so you've got to start understanding those things. And hopefully this today isn't overwhelming you. I'm not, like I say, I'm not saying you need to become a tax expert and et cetera. But I want you to start understanding this year after year. Part of my development as an entrepreneur has been, every year I'd go to my accountant and I'd want to learn like one more thing. And I'd be like, hey, with what I have, what's one thing I can be more mindful of this year? How could I be better at record keeping? What's, something that I didn't know, what's this little thing you're talking about here? And I would learn those things. And I've done that over the last couple decades plus of being an entrepreneur. And so this isn't like something you do overnight and you got to take a crash course in finances and accounting and all that good stuff and tax deductions. Like that's not your job. But a part of your job as a business owner is to start to understand that and get better at it. And right now, as you're starting off, I'm imagining most people listening to this, you're starting off, or you've just launched your business. You haven't even had your first client yet. That's why I want you to start to understand this, right? So, your first year, on average, when I start working with people, their first year, they'll earn from zero to, let's say, $20,000. I've got some people that do way better than that, and some people right in there, right? For the year, right? They'd get handful of clients here and there, do a few workshops, sell a few things, whatever. Call it $0 to $20,000, right? In their first year or so, right? And great. So that's good. So start to understand it a little bit, start to understand those pieces as you're going along. Now, that's one piece is your tax situation, deductions, income, etc. Looking at your expenses, keeping good records of what are you earning, and then where is it going? So, right? And this should be, hopefully, if you're not doing that in your regular life, when I say your regular life, meaning outside of your business, well, hopefully that can translate to there because that's a big piece. And I'm not going to go into your personal finances and blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, like most people who are financially irresponsible, if I could say it like that, it's just, and they're doing that now in their business. It's just it translates to their personal side as well. So what I'm asking is that, odds are if you're not great with your personal finances, you're not going to be great with your business finances. That's just, it's not like you don't keep a beautifully meticulously clean car, and wash it and clean it and keep the interior nice and clean and keep your house super messy. Or vice versa. The way typically, if your bedroom's a mess, your car's probably a mess. If your house is a mess, your car's probably the same way. The way people do one thing, they tend to do most things. That's just how it is. So if you're going to start working on one, work on both and it's not like you're going to do it overnight. You're going to start getting better. What's one thing we could do this year to become better at managing our finances, to become more aware of what we're doing with our finances? That's all I'm asking of you, to start doing that. And the reason being is it starts small, because here's the thing that I learned now. I mean, I'm 45. I don't consider myself old by any means. I don't also consider myself super young. So, and I look at my future, I'm like, all right, well, how long am I going to be doing this for, this work thing, right? I want to be doing this as long as I possibly can, right? But there's also other priorities as I get older, as my son gets older, as me and my woman want to do things and travel, etc. Or as I might not want to work as much, or as I, anything for that matter, right? So we start thinking about those things as we get older, and you can listen to this to whatever time frame in phase of life that you're in. But with that being said, one of the things, I want you to start to consider is, your financial future and where you're going with this. Because here's the thing, you're doing this as a business, and as a business, that means you're doing it because you're a professional. Hopefully we love what we do. It's a check mark always for us. But then also we want to get paid, and we want to get paid well for what we do. I want to help you get paid more than enough. More than enough means at the end of the month, you've got more than enough money, meaning these are all my financial responsibilities and I've got a bunch left over. What does a bunch mean? $1 or more. How's that? Right? And that's including stuff I've saved, in putting stuff aside, etc. To me, that's part of what your financial responsibilities would be. It's not just mortgages and car payments and utilities and whatever else you spend, kids stuff and whatever. It's savings. To me, that's always your first expense, is what are you putting aside for your future, right? And this is, again, it's not financial advising. I'm just saying this is stuff that's super important. My son's 15 years old. The first thing, my biggest thing, if I can teach him nothing else, if I can teach him financial responsibility, is now when he gets his paycheck from a supermarket that he works at, he takes it, he's got 4 accounts in his account, and he does his deposit account, and then he transfers instantly 25% for long-term savings. He's got 30% he's saving for his car, and the rest is overflow. Right now, those are his responsibilities, right? And as he gets extra money in there, right, he's got his checking account where he spends things, and as he gets extra money in there, I said, let's decide what you want to do with that, right? He's starting to look into some investments, etc. I said, that's what your long-term, the 25% is for. Is like, maybe you want to buy a property when you get older, right? Or, multifamily property, or we want to get some stocks, etc. So that's your future. We don't touch that. We don't spend money on that, right? So I'm just saying for you, it doesn't matter how much that is, but the point is you've got to start looking at that, because with your business, like I said, I want you to earn more than enough. And once you start earning more than enough, and as you start earning more and more money, I've never, with those of you that follow me, I'm not like most people in terms of like, 6-figure income and 5-figure months. And I'll say, as my clients create, results, I'll certainly share like, hey, check this out, first 6-figure year. I've got 3 clients right now going for their first 6-figure year, one's going for a 7-figure year. Some of them are doing 5-figure months, right? Then there are some that are barely getting their first client, right? So, but I'm not one to always be like, oh, you know what, standing in front of big homes and, Porsches and, traveling, and I'm in my office, like I'm in my condo, like I love it. It's, I live nice, but I'm not the person who's going to be out there saying like, I'm not helping you go for money goals. Like, do the fundamentals, do it well, do it consistently, and let's see what we can earn. Let's know our value, know what we're worth. But yes, I want you to earn tons of money. Like I said, more than enough, whatever that means. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I've learned over the years is earning more than enough, great. Then we have more than enough. And then what do we do with more than enough? Hopefully we save more of it than we spend, or save some of it before we spend it all. To me, that's a first expense, is saving for yourself. Pay yourself first. And now, as we've saved money for our future, right, for whatever that means, emergency funds, it could just be investments, etc. At some point, we realize, like, well, now we have those funds. What are those funds going to do for us? Because at some point, those funds have to work for us to pay us, unless we're going to continue working until we die, right? And I'm all for doing something. I can't see myself slowing. I'll see myself slowing, but I can see myself stopping, because, especially if we love what we do. But at some point, our what we save has to do work for us. Otherwise we have to do it all. Or that's what I want. I want something that can create some income for me, so it subsidizes my work, either fully or completely, hopefully fully. Well, that's the same thing, fully and completely. Partially or fully, so I have the option of doing as much or little as I want in my business, or for whatever I'm doing with work, 20, 30 years from now, et cetera, right? And so we've got to be mindful of that. And I'm not going to tell you, invest in this and do this. I do stuff with real estate and with some different stuff of investing, But the point is there's no, I'm not going to advise you on that. I'm just advising you on, okay, where do we want this picture to go? And and it's got to start now. Like it's got to start today. And it doesn't matter how much of how, let's just paint the worst situation. You're super financially irresponsible, right? And this is not me saying this. You'd have to judge this for yourself and be honest with yourself. Like, it's not a bad thing, right? I am financially irresponsible. If that's how you are, you've got debt. And what does irresponsible mean, right? Decide what that means for you. It doesn't not necessarily mean you have to have a lot of debt. It doesn't have to necessarily mean you just don't pay attention where how much is coming and is going out, etc. Like, define that for yourself, but then start to define, how do I want to improve? How do I want to get better? Anyone can get better at it. It doesn't mean that, oh, I consider myself financially responsible. It doesn't mean that I can't get better at it, right? I look at that on a regular basis, quarterly, yearly, absolutely. I'm always looking at my finances and saying, where can I sharpen things up? How can I get better at this? What am I missing out on? Same thing with business. I'm earning a certain amount of money, and I'm paying a certain amount for taxes, for a bunch of stuff, right? How can I sharpen that up, right? To shorten and keep more of that. It's a very, very important thing to start to understand. So just take stock of where you are right now and what's one thing we can do to get better, between now and the end of this calendar year, right? And that's the progression of it all. And so what you can start doing so you don't get overwhelmed with it is number one, you can start looking at your business and saying, obviously the business stuff that I teach you all the time, right? What are the things that I can start to be doing that will allow me to create more income, right? So if we don't have any income, then it doesn't matter. It matters, but we've got to have income to be financially responsible as well. So what am I doing to create more income, right? So we look at that. And I don't care how much more it is, and it doesn't always have to be more every year. That's another thing. People are like, oh, I got to grow my business. And that means every year I've got to do more than the last year. Okay, that would be most likely the desired result. And especially in the beginning, that's ideally where you want to be. But I've been in the business for a while, and I've had some really good years, and I've had some years that were less than that. And sometimes I had to and it wasn't due to any particular reason, but I had to, the first time that I had a year that was, let's say, at a certain level, and the next year that was anything less than that, I was like, oh, and I started feeling bad about that, even though I was still doing well. And then I said, well, why does it always have to be up, 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 up every year? Like, of course, that would be the desirable thing, but at what point is there just a ebb and flow? And then you decide, if I'm going to go to another level, whatever that means, what are the necessary changes I need to make? And maybe it's something as simple as pricing changes. Doing the same level of business, obviously at a higher price point, you can earn more income, right? At some point, it might be a capacity, right, in terms of how much I can handle for business. I might need some help. I need an employee or virtual assistant, etc., which allows me to do more. But then also, if you're doing more, you might have more expenses. So at the end of the day, your dollar value that you earn in the year might be higher, but because your expenses are bigger, then you might take home as much as you did when you earned a bunch less money, right? So, and that's what I've looked at over the years. So and this isn't stuff you need to all decide now. This is stuff I'm bringing up because it's important to start getting to that point and start understanding where this can go. And it starts with some basic fundamentals, just like anything else, right? This isn't like, oh my God, I got to figure this all out overnight and become better. No, it becomes, I want to be conscientious of this. And what I found is, and this could just be for me, so take this for what it's worth, but I find a lot of purpose and fulfillment personally in being financially responsible. I feel more successful, and that's not related to a dollar amount per se, a net worth type of thing. That can help, obviously, right? But it's more of, because even I think back, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? I was still financially responsible. Obviously, I've improved since then as well, because I'm always trying to improve. But from a net worth perspective, I was worth less then than I am now, let's say, right? But I felt just as financially fulfilled and satisfied because I was taking ownership of that. Even when things weren't as good, or I wasn't earning as much, or I didn't know as much or have much of a plan. I wanted a plan. I was going towards a plan, and I felt better about that. And that's what I'm asking you to consider for yourself is it's just like anything else. When you're not taking care of yourself and you're eating like crap, or you're not working out, or you're not doing things in your relationships that are going to better those relationships, and you don't feel good about that. And it doesn't mean you also feel bad. It's just the status quo, and you're just in the status quo of like, this is just how it is, and it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And so now it's just a matter of like with those pieces, same thing with your finances, right? So now I want to get you to that point where you're feeling like, hey, this is where I want to go, this is how I want to go.